Hello everyone, today Biker with a Heart bring you a story full of humanity and compassion. We hope you enjoy listening.
The desert sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the empty highway. It was just past 7 in the morning, the kind of hour when the air still carried the chill of night, mixed with the faint, acrid scent of sagebrush baked dry by endless summers. Little Mia Reynolds, all of 8 years old with braids tied in faded ribbons, clutched her backpack straps tighter as the school bus rounded the bend late again. This wasn't the first time, or even the 10th. For weeks now, the big yellow beast had been crawling in 10, 15, even 20 minutes behind schedule, leaving clusters of kids like Mia huddled at the stop, their breaths fogging in the crisp air. But today felt different. The wind whispered warnings through the mesquite trees, and Mia's stomach twisted with a fear she couldn't name. Her mum had warned her about the rumors, strange cars circling the rural stops, eyes watching from the shadows. But Mia just wanted to get to school, where the world made sense. As the bus doors hissed open with a reluctant groan, Mia climbed aboard, her sneakers scuffing the gritty floor. The driver, Mr. Harlan, a weary man with grease-stained hands and a perpetual squint, muttered something about damn engine troubles before slamming the pedal. The vehicle lurched forward, its engine coughing like an old smoker, belching diesel fumes that seeped through the vents. Inside, the kids shifted uneasily, 30 of them, from kindergartners with wide eyes to fifth graders pretending not to care. The bus rattled on, past sun-bleached fences and tumbleweeds skittering like lost souls. But halfway to Willow Creek Elementary, the trouble started. A low rumble echoed from behind. Not thunder, but something mechanical and insistent. Mia pressed her face to the window, heart pounding as she saw it. A battered pickup truck, its paint chipped and menacing, weaving too close in the rearview mirror of the bus. It wasn't passing. It was tailing, closing the gap with deliberate menace. Mr. Harlan swore under his breath, his knuckles whitening on the wheel. "Stay calm, kids," he called back, but his voice cracked. The truck surged forward, bumping the bus's rear with a jolt that sent backpacks flying and screams rippling through the seats. Mia slid down in her row, covering her ears as the children wailed. This wasn't just lateness anymore. It felt like a hunt. The road narrowed into a stretch flanked by sheer rock faces, no shoulder to pull over, no help in sight. The truck rammed again, harder, the impact vibrating through the metal frame. Harlan fought the wheel, but the bus swerved, tires screeching on loose gravel. In that frozen moment, as dust billowed like a shroud, Mia thought of her dad, gone 2 years now, lost to the sands of some far-off war, and whispered a prayer for someone, anyone, to show up. That's when the horizon cracked open with thunder of a different kind. From the east, where the dawn painted the sky in streaks of gold and crimson, came the roar, a symphony of V-twin engines, deep and unyielding, like the growl of a waking beast. Ethan Ridge Harlan, no relation to the driver, just a twist of fate, led the pack. At 42, Ethan was a man carved from the same hard earth as the desert itself, broad-shouldered, with a salt and pepper beard framing a face etched by old scars and older regrets. His leather cut, patched with the Iron Oath emblem, a coiled serpent around a broken chain, flapped in the wind as he throttled his blacked-out Harley, the chrome gleaming like polished steel. Behind him, 24 riders from the Iron Oath crew thundered in formation, their bikes a rolling wall of chrome and fury, exhaust pipes spitting blue fire. Ethan had woken that morning to a ghost from his past. A late-night call from an old army buddy, now a sheriff's deputy in Willow Creek, spilling details about threats to the school routes, corrupt locals shaking down the district for protection, using fear to squeeze every dime. It hit Ethan like a gut punch. 20 years ago, in a dusty VA hospital ward, he'd made a promise to that same buddy. If the world ever turns on the innocent, I'll ride. Ethan had buried that oath under layers of grease and gravel, drifting from one horizon to the next after losing his own daughter to a senseless accident. But the call dragged it back, raw and demanding. Now, spotting the bus's plight from afar, the yellow hulk fishtailing under assault, he gunned his engine, signaling his crew with a gloved fist. "Form up!" he barked over the comms, his voice gravelly from years of wind and silence. The bikers surged like a tide, engines howling in unison. They split the morning air, flanking the truck with precision born of battlefield instincts. Ethan pulled alongside the aggressor, his bike inches from its door, eyes locked on the driver. A weaselly man, with a sneer and tattoos snaking up his neck. "Back off!" Ethan roared, the words cutting through the chaos like a blade. The truck swerved, but two more bikes boxed it in. One rider, Jacob, Ethan's second, a wiry vet with a prosthetic leg, edging close enough to force the wheel. The children inside the bus fell silent, peering out windows at this unlikely cavalry. Leather-clad guardians emerging from the dust, their presence a shield against the dawn. The standoff stretched taut, seconds feeling like hours. The truck's driver hesitated, sweat beading on his brow as the bikers' numbers swelled. Word had spread via texts and calls, more Oath members converging from nearby chapters. Ethan leaned in, his voice steady, carrying the weight of that forgotten promise. "You touch that bus again, and you'll answer to more than the law." It wasn't a threat. It was a vow, etched in the code of men who'd stared down worse than small-time thugs. The truck peeled off, tires smoking as it fled toward the horizon, leaving only echoes and exhaust in its wake. The bus limped to a stop at the school's edge, doors opening to a flood of relieved faces. Mia stepped down first, her eyes meeting Ethan's as he dismounted, his boots crunching on the gravel lot. He knelt to her level, the scent of leather and motor oil mingling with the morning dew. "You okay, kid?" he asked, his rough hand gentle on her shoulder. She nodded, words failing, but in that touch something shifted, a spark of trust in a world that had felt too big and cruel. Ethan rose, scanning the horizon where his crew idled, engines purring like patient hounds. This wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of a ride that would test every bond, unearth buried secrets, and remind a fractured town what loyalty could forge. As the school bell tolled faintly in the distance, Ethan climbed back on his bike, the weight of eyes upon him. The Oath wasn't just a club. It was his chosen family, forged in fire and faithful to the end. And today, that family had grown, wrapping its wings around 30 souls who'd never forget the thunder that saved their morning. But Ethan knew this was only the spark. Whispers of deeper corruption lingered, officials turning blind eyes, promises broken at the highest levels. He'd ride until justice rolled in like the dawn, honoring the oath that had pulled him from the shadows. The convoy reformed, bikes humming with purpose as they peeled away, leaving the bus route clear and the air charged with possibility. Mia watched them go, her backpack lighter now, a quiet resolve blooming in her chest. In the rear view of his Harley, Ethan caught a glimpse of the school, the kids waving like flags in the wind. For the first time in years, the road ahead felt like home. The afternoon sun beat down on the cracked parking lot of the Rusty Spur Diner, a weathered outpost on the edge of Willow Creek where the air hummed with the sizzle of burgers on the grill and the low murmur of locals nursing coffees. Ethan Harlan eased his Harley into a spot near the curb, the engine's rumble fading to a contented purr before he killed it. Dust settled around his boots as he swung a leg over, the leather of his cut creaking softly. Jacob pulled up beside him, followed by a handful of the Iron Oath brothers, hardened men with stories inked into their skin and etched into their eyes. They'd ridden straight from the school, the adrenaline of the morning chase still buzzing like static in their veins. Inside, the diner smelled of frying onions and stale pie crust, the kind of place where secrets spilled easier than syrup. Ethan claimed a booth in the back, his broad frame filling the vinyl seat as he shrugged off his helmet. Sarah Sparks Jennings, the waitress with a no-nonsense bob and a tattoo peeking from her sleeve, slid mugs of black coffee their way without a word. She was one of them, ex-military, patched into the oath after a rough divorce left her rebuilding from scratch. "Heard about the bus," she said, her voice low as she poured. "Town's buzzing. You boys stirring the pot again?" Ethan grunted, wrapping his calloused hands around the mug. The coffee was scalding, grounding him as he replayed the morning in his mind. The bus's desperate swerve, Mia's wide eyes meeting his. That look had cracked something in him, a fissure in the wall he'd built since losing Lily. His daughter had been 8, same as Mia, when a drunk driver stole her in a blur of twisted metal and sirens. The promise he'd made in that VA ward felt heavier now, like the chain around his neck, a dog tag from his army days. "Pot's already boiling," he replied, his voice rough as gravel. "Deputy called it in last night, some lowlifes shaking down the school board. Late buses as a warning. Pay up or the kids pay." Jacob leaned forward, his prosthetic leg tapping faintly against the booth frame. A former explosive ordnance tech, he'd lost the limb to an IED in a forgotten corner of the world, but it hadn't dulled his edge. "That truck belongs to Vic Langley's crew, small-time extortionists with ties to the county clerk's office. Word is, the clerk's skimming funds meant for the buses, new tires. Maintenance. Instead, they're letting them rot to justify the delays and scare folks into silence." The booth fell quiet, the weight of it settling like desert heat. Ethan stared out the window where the horizon blurred into endless scrubland, the sun glinting off distant power lines like veins of silver. He'd ridden these roads for years, chasing horizons to outrun the ghosts, but Willow Creek had always pulled at him, a tether to the life he'd left. His old buddy, Deputy Nathan Cole, had been the one to drag him back, that midnight call a lifeline thrown into the dark. "We ride escort tomorrow," Ethan said finally, his tone brooking no argument. "Full formation. No more kids waiting in the wind." The crew nodded, a ripple of agreement passing like a shared breath. But as they mapped out the route, flanking the bus from the first stop to the school gates, a shadow fell across the table. The door jingled, and in walked Harlan. No, not the driver, but a coincidence of names that always irked Ethan. This Harlan was the school principal, a wiry man in a rumpled suit, his face pale as he approached. "Mr. Harlan, Ethan, right? We need to talk." He slid into the booth uninvited, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting tales. Sarah hovered nearby, wiping the counter with deliberate slowness, her ears attuned. Principal Harlan, let's call him Benjamin for the irony, lowered his voice. "The board's in a panic after this morning. Those bikers. You saved the day, but the sheriff's office is calling it vigilantism. Deputy Cole's fighting it, but higher-ups are leaning on us to stand down. Say it'll escalate things." Ethan's jaw tightened, the scar along his cheek pulling taut, a souvenir from a bar fight in his wilder days. "Escalate? Those thugs rammed a bus full of kids. What's your play? Let the delays turn into something worse?" Benjamin shifted, sweat beading on his brow. "It's not that simple. The clerk, Olivia Grant, she controls the budget. Rumors say she's pocketing the protection money, passing it off as administrative fees. If we push, she could shut down routes entirely. Parents are scared, Ethan. Some want the bikers gone, others. They see you as heroes." The words hung heavy, stirring the old fire in Ethan's gut. He thought of Mia again, her small hand in his, the trust flickering there like a pilot light. Redemption wasn't a grand speech. It was showing up day after day until the shadows retreated. "Tell the parents we're not going anywhere," he said, sliding a 20 across the table for the untouched coffees. "Iron oath rides for the innocent, always has." As the principal hurried out, The crew rose, boots thudding on the linoleum. Outside, engines roared to life, a chorus that echoed through the town like a declaration. Ethan mounted his bike last, the vibration thrumming through him like a heartbeat. But as they peeled onto the highway, a lone sedan trailed at a distance, sleek, unmarked, its tinted windows hiding watchful eyes. Jacob spotted it first, signaling with a tilt of his head. "Company," he muttered over the wind. Ethan glanced back, the desert blurring past in streaks of ochre and blue. The sedan hung back, but its presence prickled like sand in a wound. This wasn't over. The corruption ran deeper than a single truck, threading through offices and oaths broken long ago. He'd promised Nathan and himself to see it through, to shield those 30 kids and the fragile world they navigated each dawn. The road curved ahead, leading back to Willow Creek, where the bus would wait tomorrow, and the oath would answer the call. By dusk, word spread through the chapters, texts flying like sparks, summoning more riders from the fringes. Ethan pulled into the Oath's compound, a sprawl of low buildings ringed by chain link and guarded by the hum of generators. There, under the glow of floodlights, he found Mia's mom, Emily Reynolds, waiting by the gate. Her face was drawn, eyes red from worry, but she stepped forward with a thermos in hand. Hot coffee, black as midnight. "For you and your boys," she said softly, her voice carrying the tremor of gratitude. "Mia's been talking non-stop about the man on the black bike, said you looked like a guardian from her stories." Ethan took the thermos, the warmth seeping through the metal, mirroring the one blooming in his chest. "Just doing what needs doing, ma'am." But as she drove off, taillights fading into the twilight, he knew it was more. This ride was weaving new threads into his frayed life, family not by blood, but by the unbreakable pull of loyalty. The sedan from earlier circled the compound once before vanishing, a promise of storms to come. Ethan turned to his crew, gathered around a fire pit where flames danced shadows on their faces. "Tomorrow we escort, and we watch our backs." The night air cooled, carrying the scent of mesquite smoke and distant rain. In the quiet, Ethan traced the serpent patch on his cut, the broken chain a reminder. Some bonds, once forged, could never shatter. The kid's safety hung in the balance, and with it a town's fragile honor. As stars pricked the velvet sky, the first drops fell, washing the dust from the earth, a cleansing, perhaps, for what lay ahead. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The first light of dawn sliced through the blinds of Ethan's small trailer on the outskirts of Willow Creek, painting stripes across the cluttered nightstand where his daughter's faded photo stood sentinel. Lily's smile, frozen at 8 years old, watched him as he shrugged into his leather cut, the iron oath patch catching the glow like a badge of quiet defiance. Sleep had been fleeting, haunted by the sedan's shadow from the night before and the weight of Emily Reynolds' words, Mia seeing him as a guardian. At 42, Ethan had long stopped believing in heroes. He was just a man keeping a promise, 1 mile at a time. But as he stepped outside, the crisp air laced with the promise of rain-soaked earth, he felt the pull of something larger, a family's trust, now laced into his own fractured one. The compound stirred early, bikes lined up like soldiers under the sodium lamps, their chrome dulled by dew. Jacob was already there, tinkering with his Harley, the prosthetic leg propped on a crate as he tightened a chain. "Full turnout," he said without looking up, his voice carrying over the faint hum of generators. 25 riders, plus a few from the Reno chapter rolling in, Sarah's scouting the route ahead. Ethan nodded, mounting his bike with a practiced swing. The engine caught with a throaty rumble, vibrating through his bones like an old friend's handshake. They rolled out in formation, A thunderous phalanx cutting through the mist-shrouded valleys, heading for the first bus stop on Route 17. The desert woke around them, coyotes scattering into the brush, the sun cresting like molten gold over jagged peaks. At the stop, a cluster of kids waited, backpacks slung low, their faces a mix of sleepy curiosity and lingering fear from yesterday's chaos. Mia was there, braids neat this morning, her eyes lighting up as the bikers crested the rise. The bus arrived on time for once, Mr. Harlan waving from the wheel with a nod of grim relief. Ethan pulled alongside as the doors opened, his crew forming a protective arc. "Stick close," he told the driver over the revving engines. "We've got your six." The children boarded with whispers and wide-eyed glances, Mia pausing to flash Ethan a thumbs up before settling in. As the bus lurched forward, the oath flanked it, 10 bikes ahead, 10 behind, a rolling shield against the empty road. The convoy moved like a living thing, engines sinking in a low growl that echoed off the canyon walls. Dust devils swirled in their wake, the scent of hot rubber and sage filling the air. Ethan rode point, eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble, the wind whipping at his beard. Memories flickered unbidden, sand swept patrols in foreign lands, the crack of rifles replaced now by the whine of tires on asphalt. That VA promise to Nathan Cole had been forged in the dim light of recovery beds, 2 broken men vowing to protect what mattered back home. Ethan had drifted after Lily's death, the road his only confessor, but Willow Creek's call had anchored him. Now, with the bus humming steadily ahead, he felt the first stirrings of purpose, fragile as a new weld. Halfway to school, the radio crackled in his earpiece. Sarah's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. "Eyes on a black SUV, 2 miles back. Same plates as that sedan last night. Unmarked, but it's pacing us." Ethan's grip tightened on the handlebars, the leather creaking under his gloves. Hold formation. Jacob, peel off and shadow it. Jacob's bike surged left, vanishing into a side cut through the scrub as the group pressed on. The road dipped into a narrow pass, rock faces rising like silent sentinels, the air growing thick with tension. Inside the bus, the kids pressed to the windows, their chatter falling to hushed awe at the biker's vigil. Then, from a blind curve, it emerged, not the SUV but a roadblock of sorts. 2 county vehicles parked nose to nose across the lane, lights flashing lazily, officers in crisp uniforms waving them down. Ethan's jaw set as he signaled a slow halt, the convoy breaking in a symphony of squealing brakes and settling dust. The lead officer, a stocky man with a badge reading Deputy Ellis, approached with measured steps, his hand resting casually on his holster. "This is an official stop, Harlan. Sheriff wants a word about yesterday's interference." Behind him, the second deputy eyed the bikes with thinly veiled disdain, the air between them crackling like dry lightning. Ethan dismounted, boots crunching on the gravel shoulder, his crew idling but alert. "Interference? We stopped an assault on a school bus. Kids were in danger." Ellis smirked, glancing at the bus where Mr. Harlan watched warily. "Vigilantism doesn't fly here. We've got reports of threats from your group. Stand down, or we'll impound the lot." The words landed like a challenge, stirring murmurs from the riders. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low and steady, carrying the echo of battlefields past. "Those reports come from the same folks letting buses rot for kickbacks? We know about the clerk's games, Deputy. Olivia Grant's not the only one with dirty hands." Ellis's face hardened, a flicker of unease betraying the bluff. "You got no proof. Move along, or we'll make this official." From the rear, Jacob's voice buzzed in Ethan's ear. "SUV's circling back, it's radioing in. We've got minutes before backup." The standoff stretched, the sun climbing higher, baking the tension into the asphalt. Mia's face appeared at a bus window, her small hand pressed to the glass, a silent plea that twisted something deep in Ethan's chest. He thought of Lily's last school day, the routine hug he'd taken for granted. No child would face that shadow on his watch. With a nod to his crew, Ethan remounted. "We're seeing this through. Escort the bus to the gates." The engines roared back to life, a defiant chorus that drowned the deputies' shouts. They bypassed the blockage slowly, legally, the officers stepping aside with grudging curses. But as the school loomed, its flag snapping in the breeze, the SUV reappeared, blocking the lot's entrance. Out stepped Olivia Grant herself, the county clerk, flanked by two suited men who screamed private security. Her heels clicked on the pavement, face powdered but eyes cold as shale. "Mr. Harlan, this ends now. The board's revoked any unofficial aid, trespass and face charges." Ethan killed his engine, the silence heavy. His crew formed a semicircle, a wall of leather and resolve. "Revoked or bought off?" he asked, dismounting to meet her gaze. Grant's lips thinned. "You're outsiders stirring trouble. The delays are mechanical, nothing more." But her voice wavered, and Ethan caught the glance she shot at Deputy Ellis, now pulling up behind. The pieces clicked. Corruption threading from Clark's office to badges, squeezing the school dry, while kids paid the price. "Tell that to Mia Reynolds," Ethan said, gesturing to the bus doors hissing open. "Or the 30 others who deserve to get to class safe." Parents gathered at the gates, a murmur rising, some nodding support, others whispering doubts fueled by official pressure. Emily Reynolds pushed through, Mia at her side, clutching a drawing of a black bike and its rider. "They saved us yesterday," Emily said firmly, handing the paper to Ethan. "Don't let them stop now." Grant faltered, the human tide turning. With a curt nod to her men, she retreated to the SUV, tires spinning gravel as it fled. The deputies followed, lights off, the blockade crumbling without a fight. As the kids streamed into school, backpacks bouncing, Ethan knelt to Mia. "Guardian, huh?" he rumbled, tucking the drawing into his pocket. She grinned, fierce and bright. "For real." The weight lifted slightly, redemption whispering in the morning light. But Jacob rode up, face grim. "That SUV, tagged to a shell company, ties back to Langley's crew, and higher. Nathan's digging, but we're on their radar now." Ethan scanned the dispersing convoy, the desert stretching wide and watchful. The escort had worked, but the real ride was just beginning. Unearthing truths buried under badges and budgets, honoring the promise that bound them all. Engines fired up again, carrying them toward the next horizon, where loyalty would face its fiercest test. The air hummed with unspoken vows, the sun warming the road ahead like a forge for what was to come. The midday haze shimmered over Willow Creek like a veil, turning the town's main drag into a mirage of faded storefronts and parked pickups. Ethan guided his Harley through the sparse traffic, the engine's steady thrum, a counterpoint to the knot of unease twisting in his gut. The morning escort had ended in uneasy victory, the kids safely through the gates, but Olivia Grant's retreat felt too clean, like a snake coiling before the strike. He pulled into the sheriff's office lot, a squat brick building ringed by chain link and the faint buzz of fluorescent signs. Jacob trailed close, his bike kicking up gravel as they dismounted, the air thick with the scent of sun-baked tar and distant diesel. Inside, the lobby hummed with the low drone of fans and the clack of keyboards. Deputy Nathan Cole waited by the counter, his uniform rumpled, eyes shadowed from a night buried in files. At 38, Nathan was leaner than his army days, the desert sun etching lines around his mouth. But the same fire burned in his gaze, the one that had bound him to Ethan 2 decades back in that sterile hospital ward. "Ridge," he greeted, clapping a hand on Ethan's shoulder, the grip firm with unspoken relief. "Heard about the roadblock. You poked the bear this morning." Ethan nodded, glancing at Jacob, who leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Bear's got claws in the clerk's office. Grant's shell company. Ties to Langley's extortion ring, but it's bigger. County funds vanishing like smoke. Buses aren't just late. They're sabotaged to keep the fear alive." Nathan led them to a back room, the door clicking shut behind them. Files spilled across a scarred table, yellowed papers, and grainy photos of rusted bus parts. Anonymous threats scrawled on school memos. The air smelled of stale coffee and ink, the kind that clung to secrets long buried. "Sit," Nathan said, pulling up a chair. He spread a map of Route 17, red lines marking stops and the spots where delays had piled up. Grant's been cooking the books for years, siphoning maintenance budgets, paying Langley to enforce the shortages. But the sheriff, he's in her pocket. Ellis this morning. Just the start. They've got eyes on the oath now, calling you a menace to public order. Ethan's fist clenched on the table edge, the wood cool under his knuckles. He thought of Mia's drawing, tucked safe in his cut, a child's faith that demanded more than words. The promise to Nathan echoed in his mind, if the world turns on the innocent. He'd kept it buried after Lily, the road his penance, but these kids, Mia's braids, the chorus of their laughter, had unearthed it, raw and insistent. Jacob broke the silence, his voice steady. "We ride tomorrow same as today, but if they block us again, it's not just badges we'll face." Nathan rubbed his jaw, the stubble rasping. "I can stall from here, pull strings, leak what I can. But Ethan, this hits close. Emily Reynolds came by earlier asking about you. Said Mia's nightmares eased after the escort. You're giving them hope, brother. Don't let it break you." The words landed soft, a reminder of their shared scars. Nathan's limp from shrapnel, Ethan's ghosts from the bottle after Lily. Family chosen, not born, forged in the fire of oaths that outlasted wars. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lot as they stepped into the heat. Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. Langley's truck spotted near the elementary, alone, moving now. Adrenaline surged, sharp as a blade. "Mount up," he told Jacob, engines roaring to life in seconds. They tore out of town, the highway blurring into a ribbon of asphalt, flanked by scrub and rock outcrops. The wind whipped at Ethan's face, carrying the dry tang of dust and the faint metallic bite of impending storm. His mind raced ahead. Langley, the weasel from the first chase. Alone meant vulnerability, a chance to end the threats without a full war. They crested a rise overlooking the school grounds, the yellow bus idling empty in the lot, afternoon pickup hours away. There it was, Langley's battered pickup, parked crooked near the fence, the man himself pacing by the chain link, phone to his ear, gesturing wildly. No crew, no backup, just a thug unraveling under pressure. Ethan signaled a wide arc, flanking from the scrub, as Jacob cut left. They rolled in silent, engines cut to idle, boots silent on the parched earth. Langley spun at the crunch of gravel, eyes widening like a cornered animal. "You again? This ain't your fight, biker." Ethan dismounted slow, hands visible but stance unyielding, the sun glinting off his chain necklace. "It's every fight when kids are the target. Grant's paying you to scare 'em. Delays, rams, shadows at stops. Ends now." Langley backed toward his truck, sweat slicking his tattooed neck. The air taut with the hum of cicadas. "You got no proof. Sheriff's got my back." But his voice cracked, bluff crumbling as Jacob circled, blocking the door. Ethan stepped closer, the scent of fear mixing with Langley's cheap cologne. "Proof's in the files Nathan's pulling. Your plates, your threats, it's all unraveling. Walk away or we drag you to the light ourselves." The standoff hung, seconds stretching like taffy. Langley lunged for the truck, but Jacob's arm shot out, pinning him against the hood with practiced ease. "Easy," Jacob growled, the prosthetics grip iron. Ethan pulled the phone from Langley's pocket, screen lighting up with texts, coordinates for tomorrow's stops, orders from OG to make it stick. Evidence cold and damning. "This goes to Cole," Ethan said, pocketing it. "You testify, maybe you walk. Keep playing Grant's game, and the oath remembers." Langley sagged, defiance draining like sand through fingers. "She's got the sheriff wired. Whole department. You push, kids pay worse." The confession spilled in whispers, painting a web of greed, diverted funds for new routes funneled to offshore accounts. Langley, the muscle enforcing silence. Ethan's resolve hardened, a quiet fury for the innocent caught in the snare. He nodded to Jacob, who zip-tied Langley's wrists with zip from his saddlebag. "Nathan'll sort you, but tell Grant the ride's on, escorts every dawn, till the rot's cut out." As sirens wailed distant, approaching fast, they left Langley slumped by his truck. The phone delivered to a waiting Sarah at the gate. She pocketed it with a grim smile. "Good haul. Parents are rallying, petitions circulating against the board." Ethan mounted up, the weight of the day settling like dusk. But in the rear view, the black SUV ghosted the horizon again, closer this time, a predator scenting blood. Jacob's voice cut over the wind. "They're coming harder tomorrow. Full blockade." The compound welcomed them at twilight, fires crackling in pits where the crew gathered, faces lit by orange glow. Emily was there again, with Mia, the girl clutching a new drawing, bikers as shields around a yellow bus. "For luck," she said, pressing it into Ethan's hand. The touch lingered, a thread weaving him tighter to this fragile circle. Nathan arrived soon after, Langley in tow under escort, the confession unlocking doors to Grant's empire. But as night deepened, stars wheeling overhead, Ethan felt the storm brewing, not rain, but reckoning. The promise pulsed in his veins, loyalty a beacon against the dark. Tomorrow's escort would test it all, justice moral and unyielding, carving redemption from the chaos. The air cooled, mesquite smoke curling like vows unspoken. Ethan traced Lily's photo in his pocket, beside Mia's art, two worlds colliding in quiet honor. The oath stood ready, family forged in thunder, ready to ride until the dawn broke true. If this tale of grit and guardianship has you hooked, smash that like button. It fuels these rides into the heart of what's right. The pre-dawn chill clung to the compound like a shroud, the kind that seeped into bones and sharpened every sense. Ethan stood by his Harley, the metal frame cool under his palms as he checked the oil, the faint glint of starlight catching the serpent patch on his cut. Sleep had evaded him again, replaced by visions of Lily's smile merging with Mia's determined grin. Two anchors pulling him from the drift. The crew assembled in the gloom, 25 riders now, swelled by Reno brothers who'd ridden through the night, their bikes a silent legion under the floodlights. Jacob handed out comms, his prosthetic legs steady as he moved, while Sarah Sparks revved her own machine, scouting eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Full sweep," Ethan said, voice low but carrying like a command. "Bus picks up in 20. We box it tight, no gaps." Engines stirred to life in a staggered roar, a beast awakening as they rolled out onto Route 17. The desert night yielded to the first blush of dawn, painting the scrub in hues of lavender and gold, the air crisp with the scent of dew-kissed sage. Ethan led point, throttle steady, the vibration thrumming through him like a vow renewed. Nathan's tip from last night burned fresh. Langley's confession had cracked the vault, exposing Grant's web, funds siphoned not just for greed, but to bankroll a slush fund for the sheriff's re-election, badges bought with the blood of delayed safeties and frightened kids. The oath rode for more than escorts now. It was a reckoning, honoring the promise that had chained Ethan to this path. At the first stop, the kids emerged from shadowed farmhouses, backpacks slung like burdens, lifted lighter each day. Mia waved from her porch, Emily beside her with a thermos clutched tight. Coffee again, laced with quiet thanks. "Be safe," Emily murmured as Ethan idled, her eyes meeting his in the half-light. A flicker of something unspoken passing between them. He nodded, the weight of her trust heavier than any chain. The bus groaned to life, Mr. Harlan at the wheel with a determined set to his jaw, no more mutters of delays. As the doors sealed, the convoy enveloped it, bikes fanning out in a diamond formation, engines sinking to a protective hum that scattered the morning mist. The road unfolded smooth at first, canyon walls rising like guardians of their own, the sun cresting to bathe the convoy in warm light. Inside the bus, children's voices rose in tentative song, a melody cutting through the growl of V-twins. Ethan scanned the mirrors, the horizon empty, but for the whisper of wind through mesquite. Redemption tasted like this, he thought. The simple act of arrival, unbroken. But halfway through the pass, the radio hissed. Sarah's voice sliced in. Inbound, 3 vehicles, county plates, closing fast from the east. SUV leading, 2 cruisers flanking. They're arming up. Ethan's grip tightened, leather gloves creaking. Tighten the box. No engagement unless they force it. The oath shifted seamlessly, bikes edging closer to the bus's sides. A rolling fortress against the rising dust. From the curve ahead they appeared, the black SUV, Grant at the wheel, her face a mask of fury visible even at distance, flanked by cruisers with lights pulsing blue and red. Deputy Ellis rode shotgun in the lead car, his earlier bluff now backed by numbers. 6 officers total, hands on holsters, a deliberate show of force. The blockade formed across the lane, tires crunching gravel as they halted, forcing the convoy to brake in a cloud of silt. Ethan killed his engine first, boots hitting the asphalt with a thud that echoed his resolve. His crew followed, a wall of leather and steel dismounting in unison, faces set like flint. The bus idled behind them, Mr. Harlan's eyes wide in the rear view. Kids peering out with held breaths. Grant stepped from the SUV, heels sinking into the shoulder, her suit crisp but eyes wild. "This is over, Harlan. Sheriff's orders, disperse, or you're all under arrest for obstruction." Ellis flanked her, radio crackling with backup calls, the air thick with tension and the acrid bite of exhaust. Ethan stepped forward, the chain around his neck glinting like a talisman. "Obstruction! We're ensuring kids get to school without rams or threats. Your game's up, Grant. Langley's talking. Funds, payoffs, the whole rot." Murmurs rippled from the cruisers, officers shifting uneasily as parents' cars began to dot the distant horizon, drawn by the standoff's glow. Grant's composure cracked, a vein pulsing at her temple. "Lies from a thug. You bikers are the threat, intimidating officials, endangering the route." But her voice wavered, the lie thin as morning fog. Jacob moved to Ethan's side, voice steady over the comms to the crew. "Nathan's en route with warrants. Hold the line." The deputy advanced, hand raised. "Stand down or we cuff the lot." A ripple went through the oath, hands visible, but stances unyielding, the air humming with the unspoken code. Protect the innocent no matter the cost. Mia's face pressed to the bus window, her small fist clenched, a silent anchor that steeled Ethan's spine. He thought of the VA ward, Nathan's fevered whisper binding them, loyalty beyond badges, justice carved from conscience. Sirens wailed faint in the distance, Nathan's reinforcements, cutting through the standoff like a blade. Grant glanced back, panic flashing as blue lights crested the rise. "This isn't finished," she hissed, retreating to her SUV. The cruisers peeled aside, the blockade crumbling under the weight of approaching truth. Ethan signaled the all clear, engines roaring back to life in a triumphant surge. The bus rolled forward, the path clear, kids' cheers filtering through the vents like victory's first note. They reached the school gates unbroken, parents gathering in a swelling crowd, petitions in hand, voices rising in support. Emily scooped Mia from the steps, her gaze finding Ethan's amid the dispersing bikes. "You did it again," she said softly, the thermos a bridge between them. He took it, the warmth a quiet promise of tomorrows. But as the convoy reformed, Jacob pulled alongside, face grim under his helmet. "Grant's not done. Nathan says she's calling in favors, state level maybe. Tomorrow's pickup could be the storm." Ethan nodded, the sun now high and unforgiving, baking the asphalt into a mirror of resolve. The ride had forged them tighter, family chosen, standing against corruption's tide. Lily's ghost smiled in his mind, merged with the dawn's light. Redemption not in grand battles, but in the daily thunder that shielded the vulnerable. The horizon beckoned, the final escort looming, where oaths would clash and honor prevail. Engines thrummed, carrying them back to the compound, the desert whispering of trials yet to break. The final veil of night clung stubbornly to the compound as Ethan paced the gravel lot. The crunch under his boots, a rhythmic counter to the distant howl of coyotes. Dawn was an hour away, but sleep was a luxury long surrendered, replaced by the steady thrum of anticipation coiling in his chest like a serpent ready to strike. The air carried the earthy tang of impending rain, mingling with the faint oil from lined-up Harleys, their forms shadowy sentinels under the floodlights. Jacob approached from the fire pit, where embers glowed like fading oaths, his face etched with the same quiet resolve. "Reno's full chapters here. 30 now. Sarah's got eyes on the highway, no movement yet." Ethan nodded, the chain around his neck cool against his skin, a tangible link to the promise that had dragged him from solitude. Inside the trailer's dim glow, Lily's photo watched from the nightstand, her image now joined by Mia's drawings, a collage of crayons and courage that bridged the voids in his soul. Emily's thermos from yesterday sat half empty, its warmth a reminder of connections forged in crisis. At 42, Ethan had learned redemption wasn't a thunderclap, but a slow burn, each escort mile mending the fractures left by loss. Nathan's last call had confirmed it. Grant's favors had summoned state troopers, a preemptive blockade to crush the oath's vigil. But Langley's confession, bolstered by pilfered ledgers, was en route to a judge untainted by county strings, truth as the ultimate weapon, loyalty its forge. The crew mounted up as the first grey light bled into the sky, engines awakening in a staggered symphony that shattered the stillness. Ethan led the surge onto Route 17, the convoy a thunderous river of chrome and leather, cutting through mist that swirled like ghosts yielding to the day. The desert stirred, sagebrush whispering secrets, the horizon blushing pink as if in salute. At the first stop, families gathered thicker than before, lanterns flickering like beacons of solidarity. Mia bounded from the porch, Emily trailing with eyes that held a depth beyond words. "Promise you'll ride safe," Mia said, pressing a small token into his gloved hand. A braided bracelet, simple threads of trust. Ethan knelt, the scent of her shampoo cutting through the diesel haze. "Always. And kid, for you and the others." The bus arrived punctual, Mr. Harlan's wave firmer, the yellow hull gleaming under the rising sun. Doors hissed shut, and the oath enveloped it once more, bikes forming an impenetrable weave. Front, flanks, rear, a living barrier against the dawn's uncertainties. The road hummed beneath them, tires singing on asphalt still cool from night. The air alive with the symphony of V-twins and children's muffled chatter filtering through vents. Ethan rode point, wind tugging at his beard, senses attuned to every shadow. Memories cascaded, the VA ward's sterile hush, Nathan's vow echoing like a lifeline, Lily's laughter lost to twisted wreckage, now redeemed in Mia's fierce gaze. This final ride wasn't just protection, it was culmination, honor etched into every revved heartbeat. The pass narrowed, rock faces looming like ancient witnesses, when the blockade materialized. A phalanx of state cruisers and county rigs stretched across the lane, lights pulsing in a staccato warning, troopers in crisp lines with hands on belts. Grant's SUV anchored the center, her silhouette rigid behind tinted glass. Deputy Ellis barked orders through a megaphone, the amplified voice grating like rusted metal. "Halt! Disperse immediately! Unlawful assembly endangering public safety!" The convoy braked in a billow of dust, engines idling to a predatory growl, the bus shielded at the core. Parents' vehicles crested the rise behind, a swelling tide of headlights and horns, petitions waving like flags of defiance. Ethan dismounted first, his crew following in a disciplined wave, boots grinding gravel into silence. The air thickened with tension, the sharp tang of adrenaline mixing with sun-warmed stone. Grant emerged, flanked by Ellis and a stone-faced captain, her heels clicking defiance. "You've overstepped, Harlan. State authority trumps your little crusade. The buses run fine without your theatrics." But her eyes darted to the gathering crowd, where Emily stood at the fore, Mia's hand in hers, voices rising in a chorus of support. Ethan stepped forward, voice steady as bedrock. "Theatrics? You've starved the roots for your pockets. Let thugs like Langley prey on kids to keep the fear alive. But the truth's out, ledgers, confessions, the whole chain breaking." Under murmurs rippled through the troopers, badges glinting uneasily as Nathan's cruiser sliced through from the flank, sirens cutting sharp. He dismounted with warrants in hand, the judge's seal gleaming like justice's own dawn. "Stand down, Captain. Olivia Grant, you're under arrest for embezzlement and conspiracy. Evidence from Langley and the oath's handoff seals it. No more shadows." Grant's facade shattered, a gasp escaping as cuffs clicked, her empire crumbling under the weight of exposed oaths. Ellis hesitated, then lowered his hand, the blockade fracturing as troopers stepped aside, faces turning from enforcers to witnesses of moral tide. The convoy surged forward unbroken, the bus rolling through the gap amid cheers that echoed off canyon walls. At the school gates, the crowd swelled, parents embracing riders, children streaming out with waves and whoops, the air electric with relief. Mia hugged Ethan's leg, her bracelet now on his wrist, a quiet bond sealed. Emily met his eyes, words unnecessary. In her nod, a shared understanding bloomed, family extended, loyalty's quiet victory. Principal Benjamin Harlan approached, hand extended. "The board's cleaning house, thanks to you. To all of you." As the oath dispersed, engines fading into the horizon, Ethan lingered, the sun now high and forgiving. Jacob clapped his shoulder, Sarah's smile cutting through the dust. Nathan joined them, the weight of years lifting like morning fog. "You kept the promise, brother. We all did." Ethan traced the bracelet, Lily's photo warm in his pocket beside Mia's art. Redemption washed over him, not in glory, but in the simple arrival of 30 safe souls, corruption's grip shattered by truth and unyielding honor. The desert stretched wide, roads calling anew, but Willow Creek had become anchor, chosen kin a legacy forged in thunder. The compound welcomed them at midday, fires unlit, but spirits ablaze, stories already weaving into legend. Ethan dismounted last, the vibrations echo lingering like a satisfied sigh. In the quiet that followed, he knew the ride's end marked no closure. Promises endured, justice a horizon ever pursued. But for today, the innocent slept sound, guardians vigilant in the chosen family's unbreakable chain. Thank you for riding with us through this tale of thunder and truth. If it touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and join the crew. More stories of honor on the horizon await.